Please help support the channel by visiting our Amazon store, affiliate link below. Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is the Mundane Matt channel. Welcome back to Weird, Wild, and What the Fuck for the 8th of October, 2017. And I know I keep saying I'm going to do this series more often. I'm going to keep it regular. And unlike a bowel movement, it just hasn't been there. And I apologize for that. I know a few of you out there really like this. You like the longer forms content. I still want to do the singular videos, but I also want to spend a bit more time on something like this to not only kind of push myself to spend more time editing videos and making them a bit better for your consumption, and that maybe we can move into something a bit more like this down the road. That's not just me reading off an article. I like to challenge myself, I think, is what a lot of this boils down to, and I kind of feel like I've been a little bit lazy lately, so that's what this whole series is. So first and foremost, we got an interesting story today coming out of the Rick and Morty fandom, because I think that at this point now we can fully say normies have ruined Rick and Morty, and this all boils down to the Szechuangate situation currently being battled online between Rick and Morty fans and McDonald's, for whom saw it fit to bring back Szechuan sauce to a couple different McDonald's, not every single McDonald's, but only a few, and fans were waiting and waiting and waiting to get their hands on a packet of the nice sweet Szechuan sauce that originated in the late 90s as a cross promotion for Disney's Mulan. And it was a madhouse. It was a madhouse. In Los Angeles, they needed to call the police in order to quell the angry mob of people who were not happy that only a few packets were there. You had other places where people were jumping over the counter and stealing packets of Szechuan sauce. It's currently listed on eBay for an ungodly amount of money. And then you have this particular situation out of San Jose where, well, just listen to the mob and see for yourself.
Give us sauce! 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 Give us sauce!
You can see that they're kidding. You can see that they're joking. But this wasn't just an isolated incident. This was happening across the country. People drove down from Canada and were denied Szechuan sauce. And McDonald's treating this promotion like a promotion. We're like, oh, we really appreciate everything. Yeah, like not everyone's going to be able to get their hands on it. And this reminds me of the same situation that happened with Fallout's Nuka-Cola that was at Target the day Fallout 4 released, and some Targets only got 6 bottles, 1 6-pack of Nuka-Cola, and it was gone in an instant. In some cases, actual employees were purchasing it and then were going out there and reselling it. And instead of feeding into the demand of people who wanted this and would have come to their location to purchase it, Target never restocked. No, they restocked it one more time, and it was out as fast as it came in. And when you do promotions like this, you need to have more than just 20 packets per location at only a handful of locations, like a couple hundred locations. It wasn't every McDonald's. You should have had it at every McDonald's. You should have had enough out there, because then we won't get Szechuangate. We won't get people that are chanting, we want sauce in the store. We won't get people who are being so angry that cops have to be called in order to basically break up a mob who are furious that they can't get their Rick and Morty num-nums. That's a bit of an issue. As much as I love the show, and I do very much love Rick and Morty, I can honestly say this newfound success that it's had has put a damper on the show. I'm not going to stop watching it, but some fans take this stuff entirely way too far, as we saw yesterday when all this crap went down. All right, so jumping over to a weird story out of Illinois from the Cahoki Middle School in Cahokia, Illinois. And if I mispronounce that, I do apologize. I'm literally horrible with names sometimes. We have a story of a janitor who was just doing his job, right? Cleaning up the girls' room at night, and happened to look down in the toilet and come across something that was horrifying. What he believed to be fetal remains, possible human remains submerged in the toilet bowl. Now, this prompted the janitor to not potentially flush it and destroy it, but to actually alert the authorities, who showed up, who investigated, who extracted the fetal remains, so to speak, took it to the lab and tested it. Because when they got there, this situation was not like something rolled up in the toilet. This was, if it was a fetus, It was in early stages of development, and the girl whose body had rejected said fetus would be seeking major medical attention. That to give you an idea of how kind of gory to an extent the crime scene was. Except when they got it to the lab and they opened it up and they tested it, it wasn't fetal remains. It wasn't a baby human that had been submerged in a toilet. It just was a used feminine pad. That's it. It was just a used feminine pad. And you figure a janitor at an element or a middle school would be familiar with what a feminine hygiene pad looks like, you know. But this apparently was a special case. This apparently had the look of a scene from a horror movie, and it prompted this janitor to freak out and call the cops. And so at this point now, the cops have they've shut, you know, they've closed the case. It's over. They know that it was just a feminine hygiene pad. But again, I used to work at a movie theater, and I'd have to clean the women's room, and I have seen some stuff. I have seen things that would make you freak out. And you know, I'll just say one word to give you an idea. It was a mural, a red mural, 2 words. That's what I'm trying to say. So I've seen some nasty stuff out of bathrooms, and I'm pretty sure had I come across a scene like this, I probably would have alerted my snack bar manager and had her take a look at it and be like, is this something we should be alarmed at? Or should I just get the bleach? You know, but again, you figure someone like this who's working in this environment would be dealing with this pretty much all the time, because that's around the age when girls start getting their first periods and they don't really know what to do. But instead, no, they called the cops and took it, you know, brought in CSI to determine whether or not it was human remains. And I guess I should say that I'm happy that they took the extra step to do that instead of just, you know, fishing it out and then flushing it or whatever. But at the same time, it's like that dude has got to be feeling really stupid right now. And I don't really feel bad for him as a result. All right, so moving over into truly WTF news. And I expect this to get you angry. And I think more people are going to be talking about this. But there's a guy by the name of Christopher Mirasolo, 27 years old, out of Detroit, who just the other day was granted by a judge joint custody of his 8-year-old son. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, how is that a bad thing? Fathers tend to get the short end of the stick when it comes to family court anyway, and I won't disagree with you on that. But his mother is 21. Now, do the math. How old would the mother have been when she got pregnant? The answer to that is 12. She was 12 years old when Mirasolo was 18, and he got her pregnant. Now, it wasn't just like a chance encounter. They met, they fell in love, and they had this whole whirlwind romance ending in her pregnancy. No, that'd be almost Storybrooke. Also horrible. What happened here was her and her older sister, who was 13 at the time, snuck out of their house to go meet up with a boy and his older friend, Mirasolo. Mirasolo took the girls' cell phones, tossed them, put them in his car, drove out to some place outside of Detroit, held them captive for 2 days, and eventually released the sister and threatened to kill them if they said anything. Well, of course they did, which is good, and he was arrested a month later, but the girl was already pregnant with his child. Now, he was arrested for everything, and he pled down to attempted third-degree criminal sexual conduct. Only served 6.5 months out of a 1-year sentence, and he got out early because he had to take care of his ailing mother. So here's a guy who rapes a 12-year-old, gets her pregnant, 8 years later, through a paternity test, discover that he is in fact the father, and he files for custody, and he gets it. The mother is not allowed to move more than 100 miles away without court permission, or else she'll be, in trouble. And he now has joint custody of their love child, although that is the wrong word to use. Hopefully they can find an appeal for this. They can fight back in some way. The man says that it was consensual. I don't know if I would say tying, like holding a girl hostage for 2 days and throwing away their cell phones is what you would consider to be consensual. I also don't know how a 12-year-old can offer consent, but this is where we are. And it's horrifying and it's disgusting and it's wrong on so many levels. And I hope that more people out there talk about this, because this is a huge issue. And it's something that's roughly the first of its kind and therefore needs to be talked about on a nationwide scale, because this is not okay. This is not right. Period. This is horrifically disgusting, because, again, like I want to point out here, Mirasolo was also arrested and convicted of assaulting another child, and he spent 4 years in jail for that. So there's a pattern here. It wasn't like a one-off incident. This dude is a criminal scumbag who has somehow been able to use the family court system to get custody of a baby that was conceived through rape. And I don't agree with that. He should be behind bars. Yeah, it's just, like I said, real WTF news here. All right, guys, final story tonight. Not as horrible as the last one. Still pretty WTF, but definitely not as bad. Out of Washington, D.C., you have a former bank teller by the name of Felon Davis, although for the sake of this article, I'm just going to call him Felon Davis because it feels more appropriate, who currently pled guilty to the charge of interstate transportation of stolen property, which carries with it a maximum sentence of up to 10 years in federal prison. Now, if you're wondering to yourself, he's a former bank teller, did he rob the bank? Is that what got him in trouble here? No. He actually robbed a customer while he was working at the bank, and this is what he admitted to doing. So back in October 2014, 3 years ago, Felon was working at a bank, and here comes this homeless guy. And this homeless guy had with him a garbage bag full of money that he earned as a street vendor, and he wanted to deposit it into basically kind of a vacant account or an abandoned account. It's probably the best way to describe it. Now, when Felon looked up the information, he saw that there was a sizable amount. We're talking like over $200,000 essentially, like a couple $100,000 at least. And he told the homeless gentleman that in order for him to get access to his account, he would need to go get a driver's license and a social security card and all of those things, which when you hit that level of homelessness, it's hard to get back on track. But they sent the guy away. And what Felon did is he realized, oh, this guy is never going to get into this money. This money is just sitting there. So I'm going to take his information because he already gave me that information. And he opened up a bank account in this guy's name and used that money to fund his lifestyle. We're talking trips to Jamaica, trips to Africa, put a down payment on his home, paid off all of his personal debt, and he was finally caught, even though this homeless guy had absolutely no way of ever knowing what was going on because there was, he had no computer. He wasn't getting any of the statements from the bank, and that's how Felon was able to basically take the money and run with it. So he is now being caught. He faces up to 10 years in prison, and I am glad. The homeless guy could have used that money to get himself out of being homeless. I mean, he had $185,000 in there. I really wonder what he was saving for. He's a street vendor. I don't really know what he was selling. The article doesn't say what he was selling, but all that stuff pretty much comes tax-free. We all know that it's tax-free. You give a homeless guy $5, they're not going to give 25% to Uncle Sam. That money is just going to go to them and they're going to spend it how they see fit. So he probably was sitting on that money thinking he'd be able to maybe one day get access to it and buy a home or do something, and just lost track of how much money was in there because he was never getting statements. And this is the problem with the predatory nature of people and the homeless. When you know they're homeless, you know that they are not going to be able to fight back in certain ways, and they can be easily taken advantage of. And that's one thing that happened here. So I'm glad this guy was busted. I'm glad this guy was caught. And I'm glad this guy is going to probably go away for a long time. Because that's a really messed up thing to do. I mean, like, there's one thing, like take a penny, leave a penny sort of thing. No one gets hurt, right? Like, it's one of those situations where there's like no one being injured in the crime. Totally white collar. But this is a homeless dude, man. You're literally stealing from a homeless dude. Like, yeah, the guy had a couple $100,000 in the bank, and you're probably thinking, like, he's probably not that homeless, but you're still stealing from a homeless guy, and you got caught. So in that moment, all I can really say is, man, karma's a bitch. Alright guys, that wraps up this episode of Weird, Wild, and What the Fuck for the 8th of October, 2017. Be sure to leave your comments below. If you guys haven't already, please thumbs up the video, subscribe to the channel. Check back often for future videos from me, some like this, some singular stories. And if you have any suggestions, you can find a link to submit those in the video description. I'll talk to you guys later. Have yourself a fantastic day, and peace out.